Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. Joining me once again, my co-host Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's good, bro?
Hey, what's it going, man? Over here, just catching up with some of the latest news. As we were saying before the starting of the episode, Mark McKenzie moved to Toulouse. That's a good move.
Yeah, good move. But this is a Mexico-specific video,
Yes.
and obviously we haven't mentioned it, but it's been big news this week as well. Julian Araujo to the Premier League, so another one to watch out there in the Premier League, and we'll be keeping an eye on him. That's a good move for him. I feel good
Yes,
step up.
sir.
Unfortunate for him that he wasn't able to give it a shot with the Barcelona A team, but playing in the Premier League, I
Um,
think will help him out.
I think we all know that he kind of sort of didn't have a chance at Barcelona, but because of his style of play, I think this move at Bournemouth will do him really good.
Yeah, for sure. But keeping on with the topic of Mexico here, want to discuss a couple dual national prospects that we're hoping that the third time's a charm tenure of Javier Vasco Aguirre, with Rafamarquez there as assistant, we'll look at maybe not necessarily in the next international window that Mexico plays. They play September 7th against New Zealand and September the
Mhm.
10th against Canada. But at least for the if not that one, the next window. Definitely some prospects that we would like to see, young prospects, and definitely I think Rafamarquez has that allure to maybe bring some of these to the Mexico side. But yeah, let's get into it, man. A lot of these guys have ties to Mexico one way or another, either through Mexican mom or born in Mexico but moved at a young age, or born somewhere else to Mexican parents. But a lot of them are playing their trade in El Viejo Continente in Europe. So let's start with number one here, the 19-year-old Swiss Mauricio Williman. What can you tell us about him, man?
This is a guy who I just recently started following. He was kind of like in an anonymity out there in Switzerland. He actually belongs to FC Zurich, if I'm not mistaken, and he's on loan with this FC Schaffhausen in Switzerland. He is a center back, and while Mexico has plenty of center backs right now that are performing at a decent level, I don't think he can trump either Cesar Montes or Johan Vasquez. But this is a young defender, 19 years of age, dude. I think he's a good candidate because um, he has all of the traits that a strong center back must have in terms of he's tall, he's strong on the aerial side of things, and on top of that, he's also good with his feet. So he's not necessarily only a center back who knows how to defend and be rough. He can also build the play from the back, which is something that perhaps Johan Vasquez and Cesar Montes aren't necessarily great at. So this is one of those players that we see potential. He can definitely be part of this next generation. And again, this could be one of those chances to secure or to tie nationally a player who, sure, right now is not getting a lot of attention from Switzerland, but Mexico cannot afford to lose this kind of talent to any other nation in the world.
It is a position where Mexico's kind of light, right? I mean, if Cesar Montes, Johan Vasquez go down, really, who steps up at that point? We know there's options, but this one's one for the future, definitely.
Yes.
He's still young, and the one thing that worries me about him, Adrian, is that he left Mexico at a young age, right? And he's played for Switzerland through youth 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. He's captained the youth Switzerland international team, right? So I don't know how strong his ties are to Mexico, or if he is really going to favor Switzerland. His twin brother plays also plays in Switzerland, plays for Switzerland. And just how strong is that tie? Obviously his mom is Mexican, but is there does he favor since he grew up playing for that youth national team? I don't know, but I'm definitely
No.
one for the future to watch.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because when we talk about the dual nationals who were born in the States and have Mexican ties, right? It's different in the sense that they're closer to Mexico. Perhaps both of their parents are Mexican. Most of their family is Mexican, right? So they have that Mexican heritage. With this guy, though, yes, that is a concern. But we have a list of players that we're going to go through, and I think you'll have that trend where some of these players are not necessarily tied to Mexico in any way whatsoever. I think um, the biggest offering that Mexico can make to these kind of players are this is going to be perhaps the easiest path for you to play in a national team and actually go to a World Cup. And I
Yeah.
say this because even though Switzerland isn't necessarily one of the best teams in Europe, right? They are a very competitive national team. I mean, we saw it in the last Euros. They didn't make it all the way to the semifinals, but
I'd say
they
they're on
are
par with Mexico.
exactly. And looking at just the most recent list or roster of players, right, in that they're going to call up for Switzerland, we have guys who are playing in Borussia Dortmund, sorry, not Dortmund, Mönchengladbach. We have Manuel Akanji, who's playing for Manchester City. He's also a very young player. You have Ricardo Rodriguez, who plays at Real Betis. You have also Nico Elbedi, sorry, Silvan Weidmer, who plays at Mainz 05 in Bundesliga. So there is definitely a bigger gap for someone like Mauricio Williman to make a breakthrough on the Swiss team. Whereas if you look at Mexico, as you mentioned, you honestly only have maybe Victor Guzman as your next challenge. After that, you have Israel Reyes, who, yes, is not necessarily bad, but it isn't necessarily great. You have, who else? Nestor Araujo, who we all know has fallen from grace
Yeah,
ever since he
that's.
came back from Celta de Vigo.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's out there? What else do you have? There's nothing else. So I think we can counter that, not necessarily a lot of ties to Mexico with, hey, this
We're
could
hosting
be
a
the
World
one.
Cup,
Exactly. This could be your one shot to go to a World Cup.
and like you said, I don't think they could promise him that position, but they could promise him that there's not a lot of competition behind the two starters, and we're going to need
Yes.
bench center backs for the World Cup. So
Uh-huh.
sign up with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next one here, what we talked about before on the show, Luca Romero, the Argentinian born in Durango, right? Argentine
Mm-hmm.
family. He's represented Argentina for the most part, all throughout his youth career, just like Mauricio Williman for Switzerland. AC Milan player on loan in La Liga. We've talked about him before, how Mexico
Mm-hmm.
should make an effort for him. He played at the U23 World Cup with Argentina. Why should Mexico fans, be excited about Luca Romero, bro?
So this is one of those talents that Mexico honestly doesn't have. The reason why I am excited for this kind of Luca Romero quest of making him turn Mexican in a way is because we can finally get rid of the likes of Aurel Antuna, Alexis Vega. That is my biggest that is my biggest opinion here. Is this is our chance to essentially move on from those kind of players. And Luca Romero is one of those talents that you can hardly find in Mexico. Yes, he was pretty much being in consideration for all of the all of the under something Argentinian teams. And I heard and I read recently that they are super close on getting him to commit to Mexico. I'm not too sure he has played with the first team in Argentina. I don't think that's the case. But if it is, he can still use his one time transfer to Mexico. And yeah, I heard that Andres Lilini is making a lot of ground with him. They're pretty much telling him the same thing like they will tell any other dual national that is young and has talent, that this could be the one shot for him to go to the World Cup and also play in a World Cup as a home team. Um, Unlike Mauricio Williman, or not unlike, but similar to Mauricio Williman, but in a different sense, it will be way more harder for Luca Romero to make a breakthrough in Argentina than for anyone else. And just recently, we had the example of he was actually excluded from the Olympic squad. It was reported that he was actually one of the contenders for a position in that squad, and Mascherano had considered him for all his tenure as an under 23 coach. But I don't know what happened recently that he just fall from grace and he wasn't even considered. They even called him and say, "Hey, we don't really consider you for the under 23 team right now, and it doesn't seem that we're going to consider you for the first team in the near future." So this is a chance for Mexico to slide on his DMs and be like, "Yo, your competition is Aurel Antuna, who yes was the top scorer of Liga MX last season, but come on, even you playing in Deportivo Alavés, which is a prone to get relegated team in La Liga, even though they didn't get relegated last season, you're in a better position just because Javier Aguirre loves players who are based in Europe. Like literally, you can be in Europe and not play constantly. He's gonna call you up because you play in
Right.
Europe. Yeah,
And to clear it up, you said Uriel Antuna was the top scorer of Liga MX. He was the top scorer of La Selección last
as
season.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on to the next one, another young guy here, 19-year-old Oedo Vargas. One that you mentioned, you mentioned Luca Romero possibly having that one-time switch. Vargas made the one-time switch from the United States to Mexico back in May 2024, earlier this year, when he was called up for the Mexico national under-20 team for the 2024 CONCACAF U20 championship. in preparation of that championship when they had friendlies against Cruz Azul under 23 and a couple others. But yeah, Oedo Vargas, man. The funny thing about him, he was born. When you think of Mexicans born in the States, you think of California, you think of Texas. This guy was born in Anchorage, Alaska, right?
What
Uh,
the?
so he's the furthest he can be from
Whoa.
Mexico. Um,
Yeah.
Plays for Seattle Sounders FC, and another young, interesting prospect in the midfield here, and
Hmm.
one that has already pretty much committed to Mexico. Similarly to Luca Romero, you know, I think right now, and I guess Willie Man as well.
Yeah.
Not a lot of competition in Mexico's squad. We've talked about it at length before. How once you get through with the starting 11 for Mexico, the
Hmm.
quality and the depth is not there at this time. So this guy, as a defensive midfielder, could definitely add. If Edson ever goes down,
Yes.
to that. I guess that lineup.
Or if they need to play Edson Alvarez as a center back, right? That's one of the
Okay.
issues that we saw with Jimmy Lozano on this Copa America. And good riddance to Jimmy Lozano. That whenever Edson Alvarez was out, he was left to play with Luis Romo. And albeit Luis Romo had, what we can consider a decent Copa America, all things considered.
He stepped
But
up. He stepped up.
yeah, he stepped up, but he's not a defensive midfielder. Obed Vargas is. And Obed Vargas has been playing with Seattle Sanders as a first team player for this almost this entire season in MLS. Yes, he plays for MLS, for an MLS side, but again, to your point, we are going down this list of players that we think can bolster the eltri for not only the near future but beyond 2026. And I think Obed Vargas is a very interesting talent that we should keep an eye on.
For sure. Moving on to somebody else that moves, also plays in the MLS, Diego Luna, someone who was recently done dirty by the USMNT, not being called up. Similarly, like to Luca Romero with Argentina, he was done dirty to not being called up for the Olympics. He was offered I guess, what's it called? The reserve spot in case of emergencies, right, and injuries. But he rejected that to stay with RSL during their tournament. But obviously, Diego Luna plays for Real Salt Lake, young player, 20 years old as well, has represented the U.S. in the U20, U23, and has one appearance in a friendly for the main squad. But the interesting thing about him, man, and I think it's similar to a lot of these players, right? He has a lot of competition in the United States in that attacking midfield / winger role. The likes of Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Aronson brothers probably are all ahead of him at this point. Not even talking about who was ahead of him at the Olympic squad. So one that can, I think, be persuaded to move to Mexico, one that's closer to his Mexican roots than someone like Willie Man or even Luca Romero. So I think this one can be one that La Federación gets done. If they again with that tantalizing offer of, yeah, you're going to host the World Cup with USA, but would you play? I mean, here you'll have a better chance of hosting World Cup with us, and we know he's been followed by both federations. So Diego Luna, another one to watch. Is this an exciting prospect, you think?
I think it is, man. And the biggest thing that excites me about Diego Luna is his ability to connect between the offensive side of Real Salt Lake in this case of his team with all of the transitional midfielders. Mexico has plenty of these midfielders like Luis Chavez, like Eric Sanchez. You even have Alan Montaño, who recently moved from Mazatlan to Cruz Azul. So there is no scarcity of that kind of player in Mexico. What Mexico is lacking is someone like Diego Luna who can grab the ball, give some pause, and then just dribble, towards the attack. You have someone like Jordan Carrillo who can do that, but he hasn't been given the chance or the responsibility to take that role. And I think Diego Luna can actually add that depth that Mexico is missing on that specific area. Interesting one. And just a quick note on Diego Luna. He used to play for El Paso Locomotive.
Yeah. Wow, I did not know that. Another one we're talking about here, man, Jonathan Gomez. One that we've talked about in Linked. I think we've even made a video featuring mainly him in that video, not featuring him. We didn't have him on, but we were talking about him. And he's one that recently I was on X the other day, and I don't know how true this was. I'll take it for a grain of salt. But some girl he hit up on a DM kind of leaked his DMs, and there was a commenter that commented, "Hey, while you're at it, like leaking his stuff, tell him to commit to la selección mexicana. And then she posted a picture of them in his living room. He has a big ass Mexican flag on his wall. And she posted like something like, "Oh, I don't think you have a problem with that." So I think, based off
Damn.
that, and what he's expressed in the past, I think this one's one that's pretty much in the bag for Mexico at this point, especially that he's kind of been done dirty by la selección by the USMNT.
Yeah.
Again, this is one where for that position at least, I think the USMNT is pretty strong at left back. So yeah, Jonathan Gomez could be a really good, backup, but I don't think, at least for the 2026 World Cup, he'll close that gap, right, to start for the USMNT, whereas
Yeah.
he can maybe start for la selección mexicana. Jonathan Gomez, man, one that's played for eltri and for USA. He has a couple apps for both teams in friendlies. What are your thoughts?
Here's the best thing about Jonathan Gomez. He isn't Gerardo Arteaga. And that's my first thing. And I know that some of the people who follow us, like my boy Aldo Carrizales, shout out to my boy Aldo Carrizales, he keeps saying that we should rename our podcast Puro Pinche Gol de Tigres, because we like Tigres, right? And every now and then we slide a joke against Monterrey, but nor here nor there. The thing with Gerardo Arteaga is that it has been known on a couple of small reports from the likes of Tuden and some of the people that I follow and that I listen to, is that Javier Aguirre isn't necessarily 100% convinced that Gerardo Arteaga is the solution for that left back position. Even people saying that he might bring back Jesus Gallardo, which both of us are a huge fan of him. So I think this is a great opportunity for someone like Yogo to take advantage of this lack of ownership of that position. He plays in Spain. Javier Aguirre tends to favor those who play in Europe. So he has a lot of advantage over someone like Gerardo Arteaga. So this is up for him to take, and it will be up to him to actually make an impact.
It is probably, I would say, the easiest position to get into the Mexico starting 11 at this time.
Yes, I
It
agree.
is the one that has the least coverage.
Yeah, there's no depth. Exactly. There's no depth whatsoever. And so if Javier Aguirre finds himself in a position to say, hey, I don't want to call up Jesus Gallardo because, as they say in Monterrey, se toma el agua hasta de las macetas. So you know what that means. You don't want that kind of player on the locker room. So Jonathan Gomez, this will be your chance to actually, go to a World Cup as a home team.
Yep. Moving on to the next one, the young PSV player, Richard Ledesma, a player who was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and one of those other, obviously, dual nats with the USMNT. But he has represented the USMNT at the U20 and the U23 levels, and has one cap back in 2020 with the main squad. A little older than the other prospects, 23 years old, but he's a midfielder here that could add a lot of depth to Mexico, especially going forward. Another one of those attacking midfielders,
Yeah.
and he has that experience in Europe. How can he contribute to this Mexico squad? I mean, bringing creativity to this midfield, Adrian.
I think just like Diego Luna can, dude. This again, Richard Ledesma. Well, the first thing that I want to clarify is, yes, he's 23 years old, and you expect that by that age you are, consolidated at your team and you're playing regularly and whatnot. We've seen him go to MLS, go back to PSV, so on and so forth. And unfortunately for Mexico right now, yes, a 23-year-old player is still a young lad, a youngster that can make a breakthrough in the team. Now, going back to your original question, just like Diego Luna and Jordan Carrillo and all the names that we have mentioned, I think he can add that specific thing that Mexico is missing between the strikers, the forwards, and the midfield. He is interestingly enough, if I'm not mistaken, when PSV bought him, I think he was playing as a left winger, if I'm not mistaken, something on the left, like a left attacking midfielder. And I think right now he plays as a left back with PSV. I could be wrong. I haven't watched any of the PSV matches so far, but nonetheless, whether he plays as a left back with PSV or not, I think he has a lot to offer on the offensive for Mexico. And again, similarly to Luca Romero and, as I mentioned, Jorge Carrillo, he could be the solution for the names of Aurel Antuna, Alexis Vega. We don't want those rotten apples no more. This could be an easy way out for Mexico.
Those rotten apples. Next time there's a friendly fixture date. Instead of bringing those guys that we've seen, bring these two guys, Diego Luna and Ledesma, right? Let's see what they can offer going forward. Last guy here we have on the list, Brian Gutierrez, the Chicago, Illinois native, was currently still with Chicago Fire, 21 years old. He's represented the United States in the U16, U20, and U23 levels. Hasn't got an offer to come play for either of the senior camps. He was in consideration for the senior camp for the USMNT back in December 2021, but ultimately did not get called up. But interestingly enough, he's played for. He was called up for the United States under 23 team against friendlies against Mexico and Japan back in October 2023. So one that a lot of ties to the Illinois area, plays for Chicago, homegrown, but good option again, like Diego Luna, right? Like Ledesma,
Yeah.
midfielder, could have also beat
Mhm.
him as a winger. Can
Yeah.
can give these options to Mexico going forward.
Yeah, he's one of the it's still a prospect in MLS. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't go to Europe. He'll probably show up in Liga MX, as it's becoming a trend now to for Liga MX teams to bring young Mexican Americans who grew up in the MLS academies. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in America, Tigres, Monterrey, Cruz Azul, Toluca. He's an interesting player. I think he has a lot to offer, and as you mentioned, just like Diego Luna, Oedo Vargas, and the rest of them, it will be a good depth squad player for Mexico.
Yep. Well, as we conclude this episode, guys, let us know. Are there any other dual nationals that you guys have been following, that you guys are interested, that Vasco Aguirre or Rafamarquez can call up for upcoming friendlies that can make a difference for eltri? As you guys know, not the greatest summer for eltri. A lot of their lack of depth was exposed in this summer's Copa America. But there definitely is hope with these younger players. A lot of them, I think, will be leaning towards Mexico. Can offer Mexico a lot of depth and a lot of creativity going forward here. So let us know if there was anybody you consider you've been following that could also fit in this category. Adrian, man, as we wrap up this episode, bro, where can listeners find us, dude?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. We post memes, latest news, and shorts of our episodes.
Yeah, so follow us on your preferred social media platform of choice. And stick it here at PPG for more USMNT and Mexico content. Yeah, man. Good episode. I'll see you in the next one, bro.
Take it easy, bro.
See you, man.
Deuce.